Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of something very special that I've been working on. The NWBA Wonder Room. I am your host, King Vasser. This is a brand new weekly show that I am preparing every Monday before Versus Seeker as basically a SportsCenter type show. We're going to run through recaps, standings, different free agency changes, everything that you would want or need to know about the NWBA season. This is the very first episode, which means we're just going to cover some basic information, right? Refresher for everybody on NWBA. You know, maybe you might have forgotten how things ran around here, such and such. And I'm going to be talking about new class of GMs, some important distinction between how we're going to run the league and how we would normally run a Gen 9, how we would have ran it, say, 2 weeks ago, and talk about some of the mods that are going to be available, because this is a brand new generation, so there's a lot of new threats we got to cover. So, first things first, right, let's just talk about the NWBA as a whole, right? In case you may or may not have forgotten, this is our Pokemon Draft League that we run every so often. We ran it once in actual season, so once every 3 months, back towards the late end of Gen 8 after the DLC started coming out. Took a big break because people just weren't really interested, right? Gen 9 hit. And then we're like, let's give it a little bit more time. Dom's still busy with stuff. And we knew the DLC was on the horizon. We said, right there. That's where we're going to hit. That's how we're going to run this. That's going to be the perfect time frame. So, it's back how it normally is, right? Same structure. 2 Pokemon for each tier. One for OU, UU, RU, and UPU. And then 2 EXs. Can't overlap, but you can have a third Mon of whatever tier you want. You just can't have 4. That's just not how it works. Free agency and trades begin as soon as the league starts. 24-hour span, cooldown between each trade or free agent signing. Free agency ends after week 5. Trades end after week 3. This is to prevent people from trying to do some scummy stuff late season, like trading with someone who they know is not going to make the playoffs. Help prevent collusion. Same battle rules, right? You can only bring 2 Mon per each tier to the battle, even if you have EXs, Each faction can only have up to 1 coach. Legally, if you're able to sneak one away, then, good on you, but that's not really how this is supposed to go. If you have more than 1 coach, we should know about it. Scheduling, we said, weeks will run from Sunday to Saturday. Technically, Monday to Saturday, no one really plays on Sunday. So Saturday at midnight is when the week ends. If you have not played your matches by then, you forfeit. Same as how it's always gone. We usually play 3 to 4 matches a week. We still have to decide the schedule, so we don't know who's playing who necessarily. That will come in due time. All that information will be revealed by Monday. It's the basic stuff that we've been running. Standard OU rules apply. So, sleep clause, evasion clause, no running OCO moves, no running trapping abilities, no running King's Rock, all this stuff. If, you look at the Smogon page, you look at the OU rules, that's the stuff that we're running out of. Still got still got bans. Still think that's fair. Obviously, the new thing is terrestrialization. So we decided it's going to be legal. And what we are going to do is the Terra Captain on deal. We still haven't fleshed out all the details yet. Again, by Monday, we will have all that sorted out. As a matter of fact, I expect us to get that done probably tomorrow. And then, so by Sunday, people can actually submit their Terra Captains. But basically, it's going to be off a point system, right? You get 10 points. OU is 9, UU is 7, so on and so forth, with PU being 1. And you allocate those points towards picking a certain Mon as Terra Captain. They can they'll likely terrestrialize into one of the stab types or one other stab. Like I said, we haven't fussed out all the details, but that is the most likely path we're going to take. That would allow things like one OU and one PU, one UU and one NU, 2 RUs, maybe get goofy, 3 NUs and a PU, stuff like that. Because we didn't want to stuff out terrestrialization entirely, but we do acknowledge that it is a pretty stupid mechanic a lot of times, and allowing any Pokemon to terrestrialize freely is really, really bad, especially when a lot of the people who are here, a lot of players, aren't that good at this game, you gotta call it how it is. So, now, that should pretty much cover it for all the rules and regulations and stuff. So let's move on to GM introductions. So these are the 16 GMs we have acquired for this season. A pretty good blend of new faces and some old veterans. Obviously you got Kami, Kevin, Kobu, Muffin, who have been here from season 1. They're bringing it back. Some other, long-standing veterans, Will, Zedby, Logan. Spike, interestingly, is coming back to defend his championship. The last time we had someone try to defend the championship, they played about 4 games and were gone for the rest of the season. But I like to think that wouldn't happen with Spike. 6, I think that's a really good number of newcomers, right? Incog, aka Avery, really strong player. Chris, historically really strong player. Very, very special name, as you can see in that right column. We have gotten Rhino to play. This was a trip. This was originally someone else, and then they decided to drop out because school was going to get too rough for them. And then Mikey, as you remember, the champion of season 2, was basically forced in that position and clawed and kicked his scream and tried every which way to get out of playing this season, and somehow it dropped into Rhino's lap. So he is our legendary 16 GM. Also, yes, you are reading that correctly. That is Trey coming back after a 2-season hiatus to play Mons. So look forward to that. So yeah, like I said, I think this is a really interesting blend of newcomers and old veterans. I think there are a lot of good players here. As far as coaches, the only ones I know for sure, Tux is coaching Keg, so he's got someone with a little bit of experience on his side. Incog is teaming up with Enrage, which, based on Incog's ability as a singles player and Enrage as a defending champion and a VGC player, that is a very devious combination to look out for. And also Muffin, who has always had really bad luck with coaches, has Dom on her side this season. So I like to think this is finally the season where she'll actually have a real coach, or real coach to be able to actually steer her in the direction that she wants to be, and perhaps get over the proverbial hump that it seems that a lot of these players end up on. The track record is there. Took me to the championship my first season. Took Wheezy to the championship in his 4th season. Wheezy hadn't won a playoff set before then, so I think that spells out, some good luck in Muffin's future. We'll just have to see. So again, I think there's a really cool group of GMs for this upcoming season. Now, on to the topic of the actual, DLC, right? So, we are not running DLC Mons, just because there hasn't been enough time. We'd have to manually tier them ourselves. It's way too much work. What we are allowing are DLC moves, which makes it way crazier than it would normally be without allowing the DLC Mons. As you can see, there are some really, really good moves that are being brought back in the DLC. Knockoff is the really, really big one. There's some good other physical moves. Scale Shot is huge. Poltergeist is huge. Icicle Spear, high horsepower, right? Some pretty solid moves on this side. There's just the one the one really glaring one for special moves, that one in the middle, Scald is back. Vacuum Wave, pretty big too, for a few mons. And then Toxic is the big status move that's coming back. Roar and Haze aren't bad moves either. So, not too many moves, but like, Knockoff, Scald, Toxic is like the big three, right? Those are the three that are like, geez, here we go. We're back to a defensive metagame, which I don't necessarily think is the case because the distribution of these moves isn't what they used to be. But, the moves themselves are there, and it's pretty notable. So let's talk about 6 months that I think are the biggest winners of the DLC due to these DLC moves. Number one, Alomomola. Lomomola's Umon, very, very good physical wall. Not really that good at much else, but it can take physical hits like it's nothing. Regenerator, really, really good ability. It can heal itself on top of that, so it's really, really obnoxious. And it got access to 2 very notable moves in Scald and Flip Turn. It is one of the few Pokemon that actually got Scald back, and it's got a pivot move back in Flip Turn. So now you have this nigh unbreakable physical wall that can burn your physical attacker and has a pivot for Regenerator. So this thing is one of the best physical walls in the metagame, for our Draft League metagame now because of that. Second addition to have is Goodra. Goodra is typically not that good of a move, not that good of a mon, right? It's an RU, it's okay. It's got good stats, but it doesn't really have the, it doesn't only have the moves to like really truly complement it. It doesn't really do anything particularly great. But it did get some really good defensive utility. Knockoff, Scald, and Toxic. So now defensive sets are way more annoying to deal with. It's already got a super high SPDEF, but now that it has the ability to remove your item, it can burn your physical attackers. If you think, I'm gonna switch into physical attack because its SPDEF is high, it can Toxic. It's way more annoying to deal with now. And I think for an RU-mon, it's got some really really, really good move pool. On top of being a pseudo legendary, like that stat line is not for nothing. It's not useless. It can still do a lot of stuff. Next up is Crocodile. Historically has always been a pretty solid physical sweeper. Scarf Moxie is a very, very potent set. And Crocodile got its best stab back in Knockoff. So now it has a way better time of dealing with mons. It doesn't have to go for Crunch now it's got Knockoff. High Horsepower, which normally is like, that's just a slightly worse Earthquake. But, Rillaboom is around. Grassy terrain is likely going to be in play at some point or another. So, I think having that, it's not going to get stifled now. That's a hard counter that doesn't necessarily exist now. So it has the high horsepower to be able to circumvent that. And it also got Scale Shot. So now it has an access to a move that increases its speed naturally, which means you might not necessarily even need to run Scarf Moxie. And that allows you to free up moves, which makes sweeping way easier. So that's pretty big for, again, an RU-mon that's, normally RU is like, sometimes you bring an RU, sometimes you don't, but I think that is a really good physical sweeper that you can find for a bargain. Fourth on the list is Mew, because, it's Mew. Gets everything. So, it is cheating a little bit, but, you gotta call it how it is. The mon learns every move in the game, 100s across the board, that's a good stat line. And it's UU, so, it's not even OU. So, you can do a lot with that mon, and all that new utility with Knockoff and Scald and Toxic. And if you want to run some really goofy setup sweeper stuff like Scale Shot, you can do that now because it has access to those new TMs, all of them. Fifth on that list of the biggest winners is Caesar. Solid UU mon has always, held it down pretty well. Bug Bite Dual Wing Beat. So it got 2 really strong technician moves back. Bug Bite is now its best stab. Dual Wing Beat is really good coverage for those, you know, like fighting types and stuff that it would normally not want to deal with that well. And it also got knockoff. That's really the big thing is like the mons that got knockoff are like, all right, because that is still arguably the best move in the game. Maybe not this generation, but it's always going to be in consideration. The ones that get them are going to be higher up on the winner's circle, right? So Caesar finds itself there. And then lastly, Weavile. Weavile is an interesting case of a mon that was always in OU because of how strong and how fast it was. And Gen 9 hit it really hard. It lost triple axle, it lost knockoff, and so that mon fell all the way down to RU. You know, on top of all the dangerous OU mons that are lurking around and causing all types of problems. Weavile gets knockoff back, and it gets Icicle Spear. You know, we've seen Loaded Dice be a pretty notable item in this generation, so now it gets Stab that is on 5 hits, stronger than triple axle was. So Weavile is technically stronger than it's ever been with those moves if you're running Loaded Dice. So that would make Weavile, again, like Crocodile, a very potent offensive threat in RU, lower tier than it normally is. So now we move on to just, you know, other notable additions, right? Because, you know, a lot of mons got a lot of good stuff. We're going to start from the bottom. You know, again, knockoff. A lot of threats down here, right? Azov, Azu, Heracross. Low kicks, Roaring Moon, and Tyranitar and Zarude for stab. So, you know, T-Tar, you know, people think, oh, I mean, what the hell do you mean you gave T-Tar knockoff? You know, I think that is probably them saying, hey, we're not going to put Pursuit back in the game, but we got to give you something. So T-Tar now for the first time ever gets knockoffs. That's really cool. And you see there's a lot of big offensive threats. You know, Roaring Moon, low kicks, Zarude gets it for stab. Azalf, Azumarill, Zapdos G get it for coverage. That's pretty notable. Flip Turn. There's a lot of rain-oriented mons that got this move back. Scuda, Legion, Floatzel. Inteleon, Quaquaval, Walking Wake, Vaporeon. Like, Flip Turn is, I mean, it's a momentum move, right? So, like, any mon that didn't have momentum before that gets Flip Turn now, it's like, okay, great. That's, you know, that's a switch. So, you switch, you know, bring in somebody thinking, all right, they're going to sit here and they're just going to press Scald again or whatever. And then they Flip Turn and now they get momentum back. So that's huge. You know, Vaporeon is defensive mon getting as big. Something like Wake or Inteleon where you know you're going to get hit hard, but you know, maybe you have the right counter and then they Flip Turn and they bring in a completely different threat. Now you're on the back foot. You know, some other notable moves, right? Solar Blade is a little bit of a gimmick, but Sun is more prevalent now than it has been in previous generations. So, you know, some really strong mons that get Solar Blade now. Grassy Glide has been nerfed, but it is still a priority move. You know, Terra Grass, Grassy Glide will still hit you for hard enough, and there are some really strong grass types that get that move. Rillaboom, that was always a signature, but now you got Zarude, Lugia H, Meowscarada. Vacuum Wave, which, you know, special priority, pretty rare. Gardevoir gets it, which is nice, you know, coverage. More importantly, Iron Valiant, which has a lot of special attack, and it's stab. So that's a really big addition, I think, for that mon. You got Scald, right? Like I said, not that many mons got it, but you got 4 pretty big defensive ones, Dragalge, Slowbro, Slowking, and Vaporeon that get it, so that will obviously be a boon to their moveset. Poltergeist, which not all ghost types got this. Basculegion is the big one that didn't, but there are a few that get it. You know, Ceruledge, I think, is the biggest one. It has like 125 attack, so that's pretty big. Decidueye, Houndstone, Bramblegast, all get it. Scale Shot, which is another really big one, because, you know, it enables sweeping easier. D-Knight, Chomp gets it back. Haxorus gets it back. Gyarados gets it. Fun fact, Haxorus getting Scale Shot back is the only reason Kobu is here at all. He would not be the GM. He would not be a GM this season if Scale Shot Haxorus didn't come back. So, you know, that's the type of stuff the DLC allows. You know, Super Fang, people might not necessarily consider that a very notable move, but I think being able to get a free 50% off is pretty big. So, you know, there's some pretty notable defensive mons like Chestnut and Electros and Revive, some weird mons that get it. So, you know, that's, I think, pretty good niche move for some mons that could be a lot, you know, pretty annoying. Toxic, again, you know, they were very careful to not super distribute this move out, but there are some notable defensive mons that get it done. The Dunsparce. Umbreon is a big one, and Slowking G. And then lastly, Gyro Ball, which is, you know, hard to fight on because it's got to be on a really slow mon. Now these mons are like super duper slow in Berserker and Hisui and Gudra, but they are slow enough that Gyro Ball can work. And, you know, with Stab, Berserker in particular is pretty slow, and with Steely Spirit, those Gyro Balls are going to hit really, really hard. So yeah, that's the notable winners for DLC moves in Teal Mask. Moving on to basically an overview of like what I think are like the top threats of the metagame. So over on the left side, you got, you know, notable OU returners, mons that have done very, very well in the past in the NWBA that are back in OU. Azu, right, you know, on a variety of teams, but has always been a dangerous mon. Once it hits the field, you know what time it is. It's got belly drum. It has the option to run Choice Band because of huge power. It's always going to be a dangerous mon. And again, you know, it gets knockoff back, so that's pretty big. Pult hasn't, you know, not really a super big offensive presence that you might think, but the fact that it is the second fastest mon in the meta, and the only mons that are faster are Electrode variants, means that, you know, this thing's gonna get, it has the option to run a lot of different stuff because it's gonna be outspeeding everything. And this mon can do a lot. I've seen a lot of variety in Gen 9 with this mon sets between specs and physical stuff and just flat out support. I've seen dual screens curse lead just to, you know, enable offense. Like, yeah, it's a really weird one. D-Knight, you know, multi-scale. All right, it's go time. Garchomp, one of the most dangerous mons in NWBA history. You see 37 bans, that's more than anyone on this list. And yet, out of all these OU mons, it still has the most points. Because when Garchomp hits the field, bad things happen. And it's got Scale Shot back, so bad things are going to continue to happen when this mon gets let loose. Heatran, probably, well, I wouldn't say the most defensive-oriented mon on this list, but typically used for defense. But again, when you have, you know, 130 special attack and you can do things like trap people with a base 100 move that does more chip damage than trapping moves normally do, you can get a lot of offense in. You know, it's won an MVP in Season 4, so obviously Heatran is good. Lando T is Lando T. Lost a lot of utility, but is still good enough to make it work. Slowking G, very obnoxious mon. You know, Assault Vest has always been annoying. It can run specs, it can run Black Sludge, it can do a lot of goofy stuff. Again, any mon that has Regenerators, just, it's a pain to deal with. And Slowking G is back and still doing it. Torkoal is probably the most interesting one of all the returners. In previous generations, I believe or previous seasons rather, I believe seasons 3 and 4, it was RU. And so now it's back up in OU, which lets you know how dangerous Sun is this time around. Still the all-time leader in assists though, because, you know, Rocks put the Sun up, let the Sun Sweepers go to work. So, you know, it's pretty notable for that. And the fact that we don't have another Sunsetter or automatic Sunsetter in the meta right now. So if you want to run Sun, you have to spend an OU pick on Torkoal. So it's gonna cost you. And then lastly, Zapdos, you know, has always held it down. Has been pretty good defensively, even with its more offensive stat line. It's just a really solid pick that's, you know, always gonna be around. And then we have newcomers who have not been in the NWBA before. Most of these mons debuted in Generation 9, or at least in Legends Arceus after we finished up. But there is the notable exception, which we will get to in a little bit. First off is Golden Go. This mon, from the get-go, was seen as a problem, and it is. Good typing, good stat line. It's got enough of a move pool that you can do a little different things. Its signature move, Make It Rain, is really annoying because it's basically Draco Meteor, except you only lose one stage instead of two. And with Nasty Plot, that means this thing is going to be hitting you a lot harder, and it's going to be a lot harder to deal with. So yeah, Golden Go is one of, I think, the big four in terms of like the newcomers. Number 2 of those is Great Tusk. This thing is the new Lando. It can do pretty much anything you ask it to. It can set hazards, it can remove hazards, it removes items, it's got knockoff. If you want it to be a physical sweeper, it can do that. It has a really good attack stat and solid enough speed. It, with rapid spin, you get the boost. All of a sudden, you can set up sweep. Booster energy has been a really interesting item. People thought at the beginning that it might not be that useful because it's one use. And then you pop a booster energy, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter, and the mon is still causing problems for you. So Great Tusk, really solid all around. You can do pretty much anything except for tank special hits, and I still think if you get the right matchup, you can slap an AV on it and it'll still do just fine. Greninja, we have not seen this mon since Gen 7. It is back in OU. No longer has access to Ash Greninja, but Battle Bond is still a really good ability, and it still serves as a very good late game cleanup sweeper. Even after the Protean nerf, this mod is still pretty damn good, and you can do a lot with this mod. You can do physical if you want to. It's got hazards too, so very tricky to deal with. Iron Moth, another Paradox mon. Volcarona is banned from OU because of terrestrialization, which means that we have Volcarona at home, and this thing is pretty good at being Volcarona at home. It's got very good coverage, very, very strong, very good special sweeper. That's what it does best, and it does it extremely effectively. The third of the big four of the newcomers, Iron Valiant. It's unique in that it is a extremely strong mix sweeper. You can run physical or special if you want to. It's very fast. You pop a booster energy and this thing is outspeeding pretty much everything else in the field. And it's got some really good utility. It's got Encore. It gets knocked. And, again, now it has Vacuum Wave, that's stab priority. So this thing is really, really nasty to deal with. And then you have the Kingpin itself, King Gambit, a mod that a lot of people thought would have been banned by now, survived the suspect test, surprisingly. This thing has been number 1 in the metagame. Great Tusk was basically number 1 in usage all the way around until recently, and now that is King Gambit's spot because this thing is the ultimate late game cleaner. Supreme Overlord is an absolutely insane ability, can turn the tide of any battle because you are rewarded for losing mons. And with that attack stat and the fact that it has stab, sucker punch, this thing can make comebacks like nobody's business. So absolutely dangerous mon, and perhaps the best mon, available, truthfully. Then you have Samurott H, really, really interesting. When this mon, originally you think, Samurott's not that good of a mon, so what makes Hisuian Samurott so dangerous? Hisuian Samurott has what is probably the new best move in the game, and that's Ceaseless Edge, which is a base 75 power move, 95 accuracy, that damages the opponent and then also sets a layer of spikes. Brand new, haven't seen that before, and it is really, really absurd, actually, to get a free spike and good damage off at the same time. It's affected by Samurott's ability Sharpness, so it's boosted by 50%. Like, that move is absolutely insane, and that's the reason why this thing is number 5 on the usage charts. And I think it will be really good in a draft league because of the fact that it can set up hazards and do damage at the same time. Like, that move by itself is crazy. And then you still have the Samurai stuff where it's like, oh, well, you can run some mixed stuff. Water Dark is a pretty solid stab combination. We've seen Crawdon be very good. So, you know, that's still a solid mon. Ting Lu, the most notable defensive newcomer this generation. This thing is bulky as all hell. The ruinous abilities are absolutely absurd. Y'all probably know that Chen Pao and Chi Yu are upstairs because being able to lower the defenses of every mon on the field is absolutely insane. Ting Lu works the other way around. It lowers, I believe, special attack. And this thing's physical bulk is absurd. On top of having very good special bulk already, so you combine with the ability, and this thing takes hits all day. One of the few mons that I've seen run no chesto rest extremely effectively just because this thing is so bulky that you're taking 6-7 hits and then you rest and you get all your HP back, and now you got to deal with this thing again. It sets up every hazard. It has whirlwind, so it's good for, you know, phasing. It's just one of the most annoying mons to deal with. And then last thing, Walking Wake, the premier Sun Merchant. Hits hard, hits fast. It has photosynthesis. So, you know, in the sun, its best stats gets boosted. And its signature move, Hydro Steam, works well in sun and in rain. It's not like other water moves. It's double damage in the sun. So, like, this thing is... Doesn't matter what the weather is, it's hitting you hard as hell. So, you know, that is probably the best Sunmon, like, designed for Sunmon. Obviously, there are going to be some strong fire types, like Iron Moth is really good in the sun because it's stab fire, but Walking Wake probably the best actual Sunmon itself. And then you got, you know, not OU Mons, but you don't have to be OU to be a certified OU threat. Some pretty notable UU and RU Mons. Obviously, we got some NWBA mainstays. Haxorus, the GOAT, most accomplished mon in NWBA history. And then number 2, Reggie Drago. You got Gyarados, you got Lycanroc Dusk, Moltres G, Poltegeist. They're all in UU right now. You know, still kicking, still causing a lot of damage. So I like to think they'll probably get up to similar ways in Season 5. And then, you know, some solid RU-Mons as well. Inteleon, Weavile, offensive presence, Azelf as well. Sylveon and Diancie for being able to score a lot of kills and assists despite being more defensively oriented. And then Toxtricity, one of the more interesting sweepers in the fact that, you know, it's not very fast, but, like, you get a sticky web up, or just the fact that, you know, Boom Burst, Punk Rock still hits really, really hard. And then you got some really interesting newcomers. Koopa Unbound, which is currently in UU. So that thing is, you know, terrifying. 170 special attack and 150 physical attack. So hits absurdly hard. 80 speed tier isn't great, but you can slap a scarf on that and just cause problems. Or slap specs or bid and not care. Arcanine, H, Rockhead, Head Smash, and Flare Blitz. That's really all you need to know. Iron Treads and Skeledirge, really, really good defensive mons. Skeledirge being the new Unaware mon, and Iron Treads being able to do very similar things to Great Tusk with Steel type. So, you know, and then Cleavor, which is basically Samurai H at home, because Stone Axe is basically Ceaseless Edge. You hit the opponent and you put rocks up. So not as good, but still a really good move. And then Kuquavo, which can do a variety of different things. It can be a setup sweeper. It can be defensive with rapid spin and stuff. It gets flip turn now, so, you know, you can do a lot of different things with Kuquavo. And then the new RU Mons, Armarouge, pretty strong. On the special side, it can run some really interesting weak armor, iron defense stuff. I've seen stored power work. I've seen choice specs work. Braviary H, which has a signature move that boosts its speed, and it has tinted lens. So that's a really interesting mon in RU now. Iron Thorns, T-Tar at home. Still, you know, really, really high attack stat. pop or boost your energy and just cause untold amount of damage. Slither Wing, basically the same thing. Absurd attack stat. Pop or boost your energy or put a band on it and watch that thing go to work. And then Fortress is back. Was not present in Gen 8. It's back now. Really, really strong spinner. Very good physical wall. And then lastly, Overcool, which I think is a really, really, really interesting mon. It can do quite a few different things. It can be a range sweeper. It can be just generally good defensively. Poison Dark, Intimidate. Got some good utility. Barb Barrage, the signature move, does double damage if the opponent is poisoned. And has a 50% chance of just poisoning the opponent outright. So, like, you can just sit there and press Barb Barrage and poison the opponent and then watch it get twice as strong. It can set up toxic spikes and all that. So, another, like, really, really annoying mon. And so that's basically it for, mons RU and above. The mons are basically going to be crux of the team. But the last thing I want to talk about is that there are still some mons out there in the lower tiers that may or may not be able to help you round out your team, right? Because you got to draft 2 NUs and you got to draft 2 PUs or worse. So you might as well look through and see what you got, right? Mentioned earlier, Electrode H. Fastest mon in the format. So, just having that speed control, it can, fast screener. It's got stuff like foul play, some really weird stuff. And, just super fast pivot can work. And it's got really, really strong stab, Leaf Storm, or even Chloroblast, if you want to catch somebody lacking. Heracross is down here. It's fallen all the way down to NU. I think that is a really good physical sweeper for the tier, right? So, Scarf, Moxie, or Guts with Trailblaze, if, that's what you want to try to make it work. But, like, again, just for the fact that this mod is all the way down in NU, you can get a really strong physical attacker. It's great. Hoopa, pretty similar case in that it has 150 special attack and it's down in NU. Typing, just Mono Psychic isn't that great, and Speed tier isn't great, but again, in the draft format, you can create some weird teams. You can find holes to poke through, and this thing might be able to get you a lot of longevity. Just have crazy amounts of offense that is able to break teams down. And then you got Orthworm and Umbreon, 2 similar mons in that they're defensive. Orthworm, really, really good physical wall. Obviously, after Shed-Tail got banned, this thing dropped in usage, but it's still really good physically. Steel type. Earth Eater is a really good ability, just being able to ignore ground type moves, one of its few weaknesses. So this thing can be a very good physical wall down in NU. And then you got Umbreon. You know what Umbreon does. Bulky all day, any day, every day, both sides. Wish passing. It's got foul play. It's got toxic now. Or toxic back, rather. So you can do a lot with this mod. Down in PU, Chansey is all the way down here. It doesn't have teleport anymore, but it's still got most of its stuff that makes it a good special ball. It's still got soft boil. You can still spread status. You can still set up rocks. Go-Go is a weird case because, again, once you get down to PU, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. But it's got a really good HP pool. It's got decent enough attack and special attack that for a wall, it can do some stuff. It's got some bulk upsets. If you need an emergency defensive mon down in PU, it can serve that role. Persian Alola as well. Fur Coat is a really good ability. Doubles your defense stat. So this thing can, again, be a really solid physical wall if you need it to be. It's got Parting Shot, It can be annoying, very annoying to deal with. So, that's a nice little, PU pick. Honchkrow, again, physical sweeper, Scarf Moxie. Name of the game, the fact that you can get it all the way down in PU, I think it's good value because it's got 125 attack. 71 speed is lacking, but again, Scarfer, and then with Moxie, and it's got Sucker Punch, it can be really problematic if your team is not built to defend it properly. Rapska is really only here because it has Revival Blessing. That move is crazy. It's not banned. It's not really even really used that much in the metagame. But in the draft format, that can be the difference between winning and losing. So that's, Palmont has it as well, but that's all the way up in UU, where you're still building like the core of your team, you can get Rabska basically for free. So, that's a PU pick to look out for. And then lastly, untiered, which isn't a separate tier from PU, but I wanted to make the distinction because this is where the real gimmicks are at, right? All the way right, you got Skull Villain. It's got Chlorophyll, and it's got 108 in both attack stats. So, if you need a Sunsweeper at, virtually no cost, there it is. If you want to run a Sun team, you won't have to worry about, oh, I'm going to miss Walking Wake or, blah, blah, blah. You got Skull Villain down in untiered. That's a PU pick. You know what I'm saying? So, similar case, you got Glaceon. Doesn't have Celeste Rush, and Snow Veil and, evasion evoking abilities are banned. But 130 special attack is really, really good. And in Snow, where its defense is doubled and Blizzard doesn't miss, if you're trying to run a Snow type team, Glaceon could be a very good value pick for you. And then you got 2 terrain setters in Pincurchin and in DD Female down here. So if you want to run electric terrain with future Paradox Mons, you're gonna have to use Pincurchin. It's the only electric, automatic electric terrain setter. But again, that is an option. And then in DD Female for psychic terrain, which, it's out there. You got your Haluchers, your Sneaslers, your Armarouges. You can run psychic terrain stuff. So that's what Indeedee is there for. And then at the very end, we have Luxray, which Guts Wall Breaker. It is slow, 70 base speed. But there are a lot of Guts Wall Breakers that are slower than that. It gets Trailblaze now, so you can help mitigate that speed. And most of the fact that we've seen this Mon do it before, right? Spike won the championship last season. Luxray was a big part of his team. And so just the fact that it has that pedigree, I think it was fair to put it there. So yeah, that is basically your value picks. If you're getting to the last few rounds and you're just like, I have no idea what to do, I got my team assembled, or man, I have a glaring weakness in this role, these are some of the mons you can look forward to, and maybe that might be able to help save your season. And with that will conclude the first episode of Wonder Room. This really was a spur of the moment decision that I wanted to put together, but I think it'd be really cool to try to up the production value for the season, because it's been a while. We want to get some we really want to get some eyes on this. So y'all can expect this every Monday before Versus Seeker. The only reason it's today is because today is the draft. I wanted to do an initial episode, but you can expect this every Monday before every week, the beginning of every week, and then maybe 1 or 2 episodes during the playoffs. We'll have to see. And with that, we are going to transition into the draft properly. Dom doesn't have everything set up yet, so stick around because I am going to be the one setting everything up. So stick tight, and we'll be able to get this thing rolling in just a little bit.